Dave Specter here from Fret 12 with Mike Allemana, great jazz guitar player who's been based in Chicago for many years, fixture on the Chicago jazz scene, and we caught him tonight playing with his organ trio. Can you tell us about the band and about your inspirations?
Sure.
Playing with Hammond organ players and
well, this was actually my first band. I started this band in '97. I had been playing in '96 and '97. I played with Charles Earland, and I was in his band, but I did only his Chicago gigs. He had a touring band and a local band, so I was in the local band with Greg Rockingham, and Frank Catalano was the saxophone player. And so I played with him for a couple of years, and it was just I started playing with a lot of the organists at that time, and I was even playing a little bit with John Logan, who was an organist, pianist who played with Von Freeman at the time. So I was like really into organ. So I started playing with Charlie, and then playing with Charlie I got opportunities to play with Dr. Lonnie Smith, and then Dan Trudell, who's like super heavy organ player. We just clicked, and so we started a band together with Mike Schlick, and so we've been doing it since '97.
Could you tell our viewers a little about playing with Charles Earland and Lonnie Smith, and maybe just give them a little background in case they're not familiar with them?
Well, Charles Earland, was one of the great organists, and so was Dr. Lonnie. Charlie's big hit was, or first record, I think, big record was Black Talk on Prestige, and he had that hit on More Today Than Yesterday. That was his big song. We always played that on every gig. And so Charlie lived in Tinley Park. And so he did his gigs around here, and I went on the road with him for maybe a couple of gigs when I was with him, but his whole thing was feel. He had the best bass quarter note I've ever heard on the organ, by far the swinginest, and so his thing was all about the rhythm. So he didn't have extreme harmonic sophistication, though the guy who toured with him, Eric Alexander, was with him for a long time, the tenor saxophonist. He would show him like Herbie Hancock tunes or stuff, and he'd learn them, and he could play them. So it's not that he couldn't play, but he was more about like getting the blues feel and having a really great swing quarter note, and we would just groove. His whole thing was grooving. So Dr. Lonnie, I got to play with him because Charlie started doing these 2 organ gigs. It was this whole idea of having battling organs. So we played at the Green Mill here in Chicago. We played at Green Dolphin Street, and they'd have 2 B3s with 2 Leslies up there, and I would play with Charlie, then I'd play with Lonnie, and then the 2 of them would play together. And so they would do these organ battles. It was incredible, and so that was a lot of fun. So
how would you describe the feel of playing with Hammond organ, kicking bass pedals, or playing left-hand bass versus playing with a string bass player?
Well, the Hammond organ is a lot fuller in sound, and it's just a different thing. It's like the sound is so filled up by the organ, and the organ has a particular sound that brings the music to a particular place. So the Hammond organ, it's associated more with gospel and blues in its sound. And you certainly on the older gospel recordings always have organ. So, but the feel of it, it's not that it's more swinging. It's just got its own unique sound, and that sound, guitar and Hammond organ is a perfect match. They just tone wise work well together, and so the feel of it, it depends on the player. The player's got to have a good time, but can really bring a really heavy driving beat, maybe more so than a bass player, and it's so really full.
So do you find that it affects changes your playing?
Oh, definitely. I definitely play different with a organist than I would with a bass player, because first of all, if the organist has good chordal concept and plays good chords, good ears as an accompanist, I play less chords when I'm playing. When I'm soloing, I play more lines, and I can leave space, and I know there'll be great things played in between the phrases. Right. And then but at the same time, the accompaniment for guitar is different with organ than it is if you had a bassist. For example, if you were accompanying a saxophonist. Because the organ player, you play more in the pocket, rhythmic type playing, rather than abstract, just open chords like you might play with a saxophonist. So your whole concept changes, and you're playing a lot louder too. But
for say a rock guitar player or a blues guitar player who's looking to get into jazz, could you talk about your chord playing and your rhythm playing as a jazz guitar player, and how you would recommend breaking into jazz rhythm guitar playing first?
Well, I would say this. What you have to do is, there's a couple ways to do this. You have to learn your in the guitar technical sense, your root, third, seventh chords. You have to throw away all your bar chords, and you have to learn all your three types of chords. You have your major, your minor, and your dominants. And you have to learn your root, your third, and your seventh voicing. So you just have the root and the bass being on the sixth string or the fifth string, and then the third and seventh, which is generally on the D string and the G string. You could also do the G string and the B string. And then you learn just those chords, and you put those chords through jazz tunes, and you will get the core sound of the chords. And then you can add things like the 9th or the 13th to a chord, or if it's a dominant, you could put flat 9, sharp 9, flat 5, sharp 5, the alterations. And then you'll get your basic chords. And then as far as rhythm goes, when you get your basic voicings, the rhythm that Charles Erlin taught me when I was at the Green Mill with him, and he was not happy with my rhythm playing. And he said, he said, you know who taught Pat Martino how to comp? I taught Pat Martino how to comp, he said, because they went to high school together. So he's like, he said, I'll show you how to do this. So we sat at the bar for the whole break, and he sang this rhythm to me that went da, 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 da. And we just sang that over and over and over again. He's like, it's half notes. You play half notes and put an accent on an upbeat, like on the end of 4 every couple of bars. And so we sang it. So I did that on the next tune, and he had a smile this big, and he said, "That's it, baby, that's it." And so I learned, and I've learned this from playing with tenor saxophones, Von Freeman. It's about the half notes when you're playing chords. Do the half notes and periodically throw an upbeat in there, and that's pretty much a basic advice for jazz accompaniment that gets you in the right direction. I find that that's real good.
Cool. Could you talk about some key recordings that you'd recommend people looking to get turned on to jazz guitar, some of your Desert Island jazz guitar discs?
Well, I would say if you're just talking jazz guitar here, no matter what the instrumentation is, I would say, well, I guess, obviously anything by Wes Montgomery. A good collection to get is the Verve collection called... it's like all his the big band stuff. I can't remember the name of it now. But anything by Wes Montgomery, any of the records he did with Mel Ryan, the organist, like Wes Montgomery Trio, The Incredible Jazz of Wes Montgomery, that's actually quartet with Tommy Flanagan on piano. Portrait of Wes, Boss Guitar, which is incredible. That's with Jimmy Cobb on drums and Melvin Ryan on organ. And then, of course, there's Grant Green, so you've got to get... the stuff he did with Larry Young, like I Want to Hold Your Hand. There's Matador, which is a good jazz one. There's Idle Moments is a beautiful, beautiful record. And then there's Kenny Burrell. My favorite is Kenny Burrell and John Coltrane. That's his landmark record for me. That's like the best Kenny Burrell record ever. And then all the Barney Kessel Pole Winner Trio albums with Ray Brown and Shelly Manne, really important for chording and playing arrangements, trio arrangements. All the Jim Hall records with Art Farmer. So it's the Art Farmer Quartet with Jim Hall, the Paul Desmond Quartet with Jim Hall. All those records are extremely important for... beautiful chording. Sonny Rollins' The Bridge, that has Jim Hall on it also. That's extremely important. Jim Hall is probably my favorite. Just the way he accompanies, space, the way he plays is very interesting. I would say the Jimmy Rainey albums with Stan Getz, really important. Those are beautiful, beautiful recordings for jazz guitar. And to hear a cat in 1951 playing all this stuff, you didn't hear that on guitar very often.